with some people that planning is great. I wouldn't tell people to not plan, but what I'm saying is I don't want to stress myself out. That's the whole purpose of, leaving, the typical workforce and doing something like this. So I like to be a little bit more laid back with that kind of stuff. And Puerto Rico is amazing, it's amazing here. So.
Wow, that's super interesting. I love your story. So how you guys met in the military, I'm wondering just kind of as a starting point, because both of you had that experience of being in the military and having to sort of pick up and move, and not necessarily, having a choice of where you're going to move to all the time, right? So do you think did that experience, you think, really prepare you to feel more comfortable with the idea of moving abroad, especially since, Tennay, you were stationed in Puerto Rico for a little bit? Do you feel like if you weren't in the military, do you think you would be as ready to make a move like this?
I think so. So I grew up in New York City. I lived in Washington Heights, which is predominantly Dominican neighborhood.
Oh, so yeah, you lived in Dominican Republic.
Yeah, and I lived in Spanish. I felt real comfortable with. I feel real comfortable with what we call foreigners. I feel real comfortable with people from all over. I just love learning different stories, learning different cultures. I love that. Eating different food. Oh my God, the food in Puerto Rico is amazing. So I already love that. But I do think seeing more things in the military, like I also lived in Greece, like where I met Troy, and I lived in, in the Middle East for some time. And I just wanted more. I wanted to see more of the world. Like, I feel like it's become like almost like an addiction. Like, where can I go? What new foods can I try? And I love it. Like, I feel like this is what God put me on this earth for, it's just to be able to help other people too. Like, even if it's something like having a conversation like this. Someone texted me this morning, they got their passport. It's a girl, I met her here in Puerto Rico, didn't know her. I took her around and showed her out, and she didn't have a passport. She got her passport, and she texted me this morning, like, you don't realize how you inspired me to do something like that. And like, I almost started to cry. I just feel if we can, my husband's laughing at me. I get all emotional. If I could help somebody with something just like that, like getting a passport, it might seem like such a little thing, but it's such a big thing because it's, such a big world. So to bring it back to your question, I was blessed with being able to travel in the military and being able to being given that opportunity. But I think it helped, but I think my love for it started way, way, way back.
I would say being in the military actually helped with the relocation, because sometimes in the military, you have to pick up and leave and within 30 days or 2 weeks without even knowing where you're going. So having to be able to adapt to things quickly helped a lot, and I think we've been doing this so much together since we've been together almost 17 years. And like I said, Tennay, she'll book a trip, and next thing you know, I'm leaving in 2 days to go somewhere,
I try to give you more than 2 days.
We go do crazy stuff. She's had me swim with sharks and stuff like that. And I think we kind of passed that on to our kids, because all of our kids, they done picked up and moved from Florida to California. And the youngest one, he just picked up and moved and drove from Maryland to California. So we passed that on. So being in the military, yes, it makes it easier, but I think that's what a lot of young people are scared to do, is leave home and be uncomfortable, so.
And see, I think it's more people, older people that are scared. I think, the younger generation is ready to go. I think, a lot of people a little bit older just kind of scared. My aunt had never left, the States or anything. And to be able, she actually went to Greece with us a few years ago, and to be able to take her to do that, I remember she was drinking coffee, she was sitting outside, it was beautiful, and she was just by herself, right? And I was coming around the corner, and she just was so happy, in our culture. But when I was growing up in our culture, I never saw Black people traveling. When I was opening up travel magazines and stuff, all I would see was white people, that would just be it. And that was the reality. And so now when I'm seeing our people out there, I don't care where they're going. I'm just happy for them. I don't even talk down Miami, or people like, oh, don't go to Miami or Vegas. Go wherever, just go somewhere, just go do something. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, first, there's a lot in what you all said, so we're going to unpack this sort of one by one. I think The first thing that really stands out to me is just having that ability to make those types of shifts, right? So having that experience in the military, it sounds like it was helpful, but it sounds like, Tennay, your spirit was more of like you were already ready and you were open. And as you mentioned, sort of growing up, you know, a lot of people, especially for me growing up, you grew up on the East Coast of the U.S., I knew people who didn't even leave their neighborhood, let alone, you know, leave the country or leave the city or think about going abroad. So I do think culturally it has been a challenge, which is one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this series, is because I think there is a lot of fear. And I think a lot of that fear comes from not knowing, right? Not knowing what to expect, not knowing if you'll be accepted when you go somewhere, not knowing how it will be, especially, you know, you mentioned Greece, you mentioned the Middle East. These are places where people don't necessarily speak English as readily as they might in some other places. So there is a lot of fear that's built up, and hopefully some of the information we can give folks today will help them get over some of that mystery about, you know, traveling and even moving abroad. So I want to talk a little bit about Puerto Rico because you mentioned, Tennay, that you were stationed there for a few years. Where were you stationed and where do you guys live now?
So when I was stationed here, I was stationed on a base called Roosevelt Roads. We used to call it Roosevelt Roads, and it was down in Saba. I actually just got a chance to go back on that base because I took the ferry to Culebra, and it's out of that base, which is, you know, that base is closed. It's been closed for years now, and it just looks completely different. But so now we live in the Isla Verde area, but we're actually getting a house built in the Peñones area of Loíza, which I would say it's so hard to find property or land over there because no one sells. But I searched for a while because I really wanted something in that area. I'm not sure how familiar you are with, you know, the area, but that's the area that I would say is predominantly, I guess, like quote unquote Black, because the slave ships pulled into Loíza. And so a lot of the culture there is still a lot of huge African culture there. So I wanted some property there. And it took a long time to get some, but I got a small, itsy bitsy piece. And on that piece, we are going to build what we're considering one of our forever homes. And I love it because, you know, we already said we love Puerto Rico, but I love Black too. You know, I just love it. And so to be able to combine the two cultures, to me, is just phenomenal.
Yeah, so I'm very familiar with that area. So Isla Verde is somewhere that if I'm on a short trip that I'll stay because Isla Verde is really close to the airport in San Juan. So you're not very far from the city in that area. And Loíza, talk a little bit about, you mentioned the influence of like African culture there and how that area in particular in Peñones does have a lot more of a presence of African descendants. I know what a lot of people think about Puerto Rico. They think like J-Lo, Marc Anthony. I mean, this is Spanish con salsa, so I always talk about salsa music. But I think people have this stereotypical view of what a Puerto Rican looks like. And it's usually not someone who is Afro-Latino, Afro-Latina. So in your experience,